Why can't people just do what I want them to do? Gosh, don't they know any better? Why doesn't everyone see that my way is the right way? Geez, where do they all get these crazy ideas? Why is everyone fighting so much these days? Right? Holy moly, why can't everyone just get along? Well, let's find out. Stay tuned for story time with your Brother Zen. Hey, my Zen friend, welcome to the next adventure of the easier path with your Brother Zen. I share the intention of this podcast series every adventure because I feel it's important for your experience. So the focus of this series is not to convince you that this human journey is easy. The intention is to share challenges we encounter along the way as a human character and provide wisdom and guidance from spirit that could help transform those challenges into higher truth. I'm not a licensed psychologist or doctorate of any kind. I'm simply sharing what I have experienced and what I feel the spirit world would like us to know. The intention is that you have the new information to create new opportunities of ease in your adventure, or at the very least confirm and remind you of things you already know, but maybe have temporarily been distracted from it because of the loudness and bright shininess of things in the human adventure. All of this is about making the adventure easier rather than harder. And if that's what we want to experience, it's your adventure and you get to choose what you want to experience. There's no judgment from spirit or from me. You do you, boo. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Before we jump into our adventure, let us first come out of the storm and into the calm, because we cannot clearly hear from spirit or transform when we're in stress or fear. So we'll do it by taking a big deep breath in for a count of 4, hold it for 3, and exhale slowly for up to a count of 7. So let us begin. We'll do a big deep breath in for the count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 1, 2, 3, and exhale slowly 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And do that as many times as you feel you need to in order to have at least a small sense of calm in this moment. You can pause the podcast if you need to. Sometimes it feels like we spend our lifetime trying to please others and becoming more and more frustrated when we feel like others aren't trying to please us. And what that can look like is us feeling like we're bending over backwards for others, sacrificing what we want so that other people are happy and happy with us. And that can be in relationships with family and friends or lovers. That can be with teachers, employers, peers at school and work. That can even be in like religions or political parties and between nations. Hell, we have wars and have had wars happening for probably as long as man has been in existence, right? There seems to have been far less conflict when we humans were pocketed away without electronics and ways of knowing other people's business across the world. There was a time when everyone kind of grew up in the same town or tribe and never left it. Most people believed a majority of the same things through conditioning, through praise and punishment, so did not go outside the norm of what was professed as the, quote, right way to act. Strangers weren't welcome around here, like we saw portrayed in a lot of Western movies here in the United States. But technology grew. People moved around for more money and adventure. We ran into other people with different beliefs. And it causes conflict. But we also grow through those experiences of coming up against someone who thinks differently than we do. I remember when this became very apparent to me. We learn a lot about our expectations and beliefs in relationships with humans. Family tends to think a lot along the same lines, at least in the beginning, because we are conditioned by our parents to kind of obey their perspectives. Our first romantic relationships present us with a significant opportunity to confront our personal beliefs through the experiences of great disappointments and perceived heartbreaks. Many of our fears get right in our face, demanding that they be heard and experienced. My first great awakening happened in my first romantic relationship. It's when I realized that we all don't think the same, and I was so surprised. We all grow up with a set of rules, expectations, what needs to be done, how things are supposed to be done, and when they are supposed to be done. And when we come across someone who doesn't do what needs to be done or how we think it's supposed to be done in the time we think it should be done, then there's a trouble a brewing. We might think they aren't doing these things because they're lazy or want us to do them or doing it out of spite for some reason. It doesn't really dawn on us that they don't know they're supposed to do it our way in our timing. So we get frustrated, and eventually that frustration comes out. And depending on how we're feeling and on how long we've been stuffing those frustrations, it can come out like a volcanic eruption. So in my first relationship, they moved in with me quickly because they were getting out of the military unexpectedly and either had to move in with me or go home out of state. So we hadn't known each other a very long time and hadn't experienced spending time at each other's places to be aware of how each other lived. My great awakening happened at first with the chores. I was all about the work must be done first, and then if there's time left over, then we can go play, which was handed down to me from my parents. Living together was new to me, so I was acclimating to having someone in my space, anywho, besides family, right? But the frustration grew with me cleaning up their messes in the bathroom, doing their laundry, doing their dishes, and cleaning up after they cooked. Putting things back where they were supposed to go because they would leave them out. And finally, the thing that sent me over the edge was finding a plate on the side of the couch where they sat with a glass stuck to it like it was cemented because it had been there on their side for a week. Oh my God. I can't remember all the details of the interaction that preceded our communication because I think I blacked out in anger or something. But I imagine I said some unkind things about laziness and how I was doing everything and they were doing nothing, and how I was feeling taken advantage of and grrr, roar, or something like that. So after the smoke cleared and I was in the laundry room moving washing, to the dryer, they came in to have the audacity to let me know in a calm, informative voice that when they were in the military, they had to clean toilets and do all sorts of menial labor and duties, and they were ready to relax and enjoy their life. And if I wanted everything to be done a certain way, that I could do it. But they didn't have the same standards of having things a certain way that I did. So if it irritated me to not have something done, to just do it, but not to put it on them. I know, they were brave, weren't they? But I was left speechless. Not out of anger or rage this time. They left me thinking. I was like, what? You don't think things have to be the same way? And as they left me in my silence, I pondered what they had said as I slowly folded the laundry. And I didn't realize that that was an option, to not do what was expected. Their comments had opened a whole new world for me in that moment. And they were right. Gasp, I know. We don't have to do anything we don't want to do as adults. What? I know. We don't all have the same ideal of what we want in the world. And that began my questioning of what I thought all the rules were and what was opinion rather than absolutes to maintain living as a human. I found that most of it was human opinion, not really necessary to keep living in the physical realm. After that, I stopped nagging at them and began to do the things I felt needed to be done, and I let other things go. I was less dogmatic about some of the things that were supposed to be done weekly or monthly. And guess what? The dirty dish police didn't show up in the morning when the dishes were left overnight. And the CIA, the Carpet Inspection Association, did not arrive when the carpet wasn't vacuumed each week. The punishment I had as a child didn't arrive as an adult. I see that as one of the things I learned from my first relationship. Do what has to be done, and make sure to take time to play too. They brought me more to the center, and I also seemed to bring them more to the center as well. Like if they wanted to go to a movie, like near in the future, I would tell them what I felt needed to get done before I would be able to go, and then they would tell me what they were willing to do of the chores in order for us to be able to go with me in a good mood. So I am grateful for this experience, and here's why. As human characters, we will stay in a belief until we're rattled out of it. Our inner children prefer to stay in a place where it feels safe and in control, which means it's really, likes things to stay the same. But that's not always productive towards our growth or our freedom. If we stay stuck in the old beliefs that blind us, bind us, restrict us, and make us feel limited and small, we will stay blinded, binded, restricted, and feeling limited and small. Makes sense, right? We can't keep doing what we've always done and expect a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity. New results require new ways. Thus, the shaking and rattling of our mental cage of beliefs is a gift for our growth and our freedom. I started off this episode with 3 questions, so let's tackle each one. Why can't people just do what I want them to? Don't they know any better? Everyone else thinks this too, even about us. Oh, right? As I mentioned in my story, it was a great surprise that other people didn't have the exact same rules and ways of doing things, aka expectations. Depending on where we were raised, what we experienced, who our teachers and influencers were, we formed our opinions based on their opinions, and even some of our own perceptions and opinions contradict one another. With this person, be serious. With the other person, be funny. With yet another person, be talkative, but with this other person, be silent. Others are wondering why we can't act right, wondering why we don't know any better. They have their own list of how things should be, and there are a lot of things on that list that don't line up with others' lists. I know, who knew? We and they both have double standards, too. I know. Stop it, Bretta Zen. You're freaking me out now, right? But I mean, that's the definition of it, right? I think you should do what I tell you to do. But if they say they will do that if we also do what they tell us to do, now wait a minute. You're going a little overboard there. We want to be able to think and act the way that feels comfortable for us. Yet we want the other people to change, to act like what is comfortable for us, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable. When I worked in corporate life, someone who was in an organized religion came to me to tell me that they were offended by someone's poster in their cubicle. When I went to look at it, and then I went to her desk to let her know what I saw. She had her religion's stuff all over her office. And I told her that I could take it to HR, but they might decide that we have to all take all our personal items home because some of what she had up could be offensive to other people as well. She was surprised that I would say that. I told her that maybe there was someone with a different religion than hers, and that the things that she had up might come across to some others as trying to tell them that their beliefs are wrong, and that could be offensive. It was wonderful to see the little light click on in her head, and she said she understood and would walk a different way to the break room if anything offended her. That's interesting, right? Anything we point at others, there are 3 fingers pointing back at us. And we can see how we are not doing what our higher selves would like us to do 100% of the time, and to ask ourselves why we don't know better. Is there better? Or is there just different? Maybe they do know differently and they chose to believe a different way. And that is okay. We will talk more about what happens when we try to push or pull someone in a direction later in this podcast. The second question at the beginning of the podcast was, why doesn't everyone see that my way is the right way? Where did they get their crazy ideas? And I think everything that we've talked about up to this point applies and explains how we all think our way is the right way and that others are off base sometimes, and many times. They get their crazy ideas from the same place that we do, our external world. We are inundated with opinions while growing up. Family, friends, peers, movies, books, television, teachers, religious leaders, and just walking around observing strangers experiencing things. When our inner child feels good and receives praise, it creates rules and beliefs to try to have that happen again. And when it experiences feeling bad and being punished, it creates a lot of rules to never have that happen again. And if you believe in astrology, and really, even if you don't, we could see that we are all a bunch of different types of soups with all sorts of influences from astrological planetary energies and all those human experiences that we have along our way. A lot of subconscious beliefs are running on autopilot below the surface. And if we aren't consciously choosing, then our subconscious is running the show. Right? Yikes! That could be a little scary. The final question I had asked was, why is everyone fighting so much these days? Why can't everyone just get along? In our current world, we have access to knowing a lot about a lot of people via social media and the internet, that we didn't have 20 years ago. From a seemingly safe place of social media and phone and computer screens, we are more apt to express our emotions, expecting everyone else to feel responsible for them. It brings us a challenge of having different people bring different perspectives and beliefs, which can spark our defensiveness for our own perspectives and beliefs. And this can cause a bit of me versus them energy and a bit of conflict between human characters. Many of us have less physical threats to be concerned about, which has transformed many societies across the world into an emotional jungle with lots of emotional monsters where we have less thick skin, are more emotionally reactive from a place of fear of emotional rejection, and are more easily offended and impacted by the actions and non-actions, words, or silence of others. Physical threats can be resolved more quickly than emotional fears that took years to develop and being reinforced as we grew up as children. Because of this, emotional fears inciting fight or flight mode can happen more often and consistently as we spend hours watching the news, being engaged in social media, and all this gets our attention through igniting our fears. This is going to be taken away from you. This or that is going to be done to you. You're going to starve. You're going to die. These people are threatening you. Conflict sells the news and the goods. We buy things or buy into things more easily when we're in a place of fear. So, Merry Christmas. Enjoy Black Friday. But all this fighting also brings us a gift. Some of our long-held personal beliefs are challenged to where we're shook awake to begin to see how we took on popular opinions of others when we were growing up, not knowing that we can question these opinions. We can ultimately come to a place of empowerment where we realize our power of choice. We get to choose what we want to believe, the stories we place on things. We get to choose what emotions we want to feel in the moment. We get to choose what our physical actions are in any experience. We get to choose what form our energy takes in our world. It's an exciting awareness that can change our lives and is where we can find some true personal freedom. Something to consider. How do we feel when people are telling us we are wrong or that something isn't right with us? We don't like it. No one likes that. The audacity that others might know what's better for us. How rude. How dare they? And then, oops, is that what we're doing to them? In a way, we're telling each other that we're not acceptable as we are, not lovable, which feels like rejection. And that's one of our human character's greatest fears, to be rejected by our tribe, our love, or by a God or creator. When we are correcting others or trying to fix them to be more like us, that's what we're doing, rejecting. We're doing this through an expression of fear, though it can also be coming from a place of love at the same time, because we do care about the other person and we're afraid they will get rejected if they keep doing what they're doing or not doing what they should be doing or saying things they shouldn't be saying or not saying what they should. Which, when you look at it, we're already doing that rejecting by not accepting and loving them for who they are. So we're already rejecting them. And we're trying to save them from being rejected, but in the same breath, we're actually doing what we're trying to save them from. And as we are pushed, we push back. And as we push, others push back against us. As we pull at others, they pull back. And as others try to pull at us, we pull back too. It's a natural human reaction. When we talk with each other, when we walk with each other, instead of pushing and pulling, we have movement and harmony. Otherwise, it turns into some sort of crazy wrestling match or war. Our inner children, fear change. They resist it. And at first, they are very resistant to it. They have a need to feel safe and in control. And change doesn't support that. Sameness and consistency support that. So when others aren't doing what we feel we all should be doing, we're ignited or triggered to make others and ourselves change to fit into the acceptable parameters. We all have our individual and unique expectations and small t truths rooted in fear. I often refer to them as conditional love laws. It's not unconditional love, it's conditional love. You do this, you do that, you're acceptable, right? Our conditional love laws contradict others' conditional love laws, and even our own can contradict themselves, as we mentioned earlier. We apply them in some situations to some people and not to other situations and other people. The more we look truthfully at changes in our thoughts and beliefs, the more our inner child sees the consistency of change, not ending in death or despair. And then with consistent change, our inner child can feel safer and safer because that becomes our new normal, our new sameness. If we can gain a different perspective on change, from like a higher perspective rooted in belief that everything happens for us, not to us, that the Creator and the universe are kind, that we are loved unconditionally by a great host of beings of unconditional love and light and the Creator of all things, then we become more comfortable with change. When we realize all the stories that we've been told about what something is supposed to mean were opinion of the human characters we grew up around as children, and that we are the ones who get to choose the story of what is happening, then we are freed from the puppet strings of the fear of the future. And what I mean by that is that when I believe specifically that all these things mean a certain thing if they happen, and if they do happen, then this is what it means about me and the world, how I must feel in reaction to that meaning. And I also need to invest my energy and actions in a certain way, then I do feel out of control. Like the world is telling me who I have to be depending on what is happening next in my life in the outside world. But when I step back into my power, cut those puppet strings, then I am no longer at the whim of the ever-changing outside world, and I get to decide what everything means about me, how I'm going to feel, and what actions and energy I'm going to choose to focus on. We feel so much less out of control because we're back in control of the only thing we can truly control, our own choices. One higher perspective of change that I've talked about a bit in the past episodes, where we can realize when we're pointing our fingers at others that 3 fingers are pointing back to ourselves. And by that, I don't mean to blame ourselves or judge ourselves, but to reflect back upon ourselves. When we realize everyone and everything in the outside world is reflecting back to me what I want to see about myself, then I can reroute my energy from trying to control the world and to change everyone else, and find out what I'm wanting to change about myself. And maybe let's even replace that word change with how and what do I want to release that is not my true self? What are those definitions of myself that I've taken upon myself growing up that were only opinions of those human characters that were around us in person, through TV, movies, books, all that? However we were taking in opinions of should be. The other higher perspective that can be a tool to make our path easier as a human is realizing that humans only change when we feel like it. We tend not to change until the uncomfortable feelings of being in the situation that we're in outweighs our fear of change, or that maybe the reward or benefit of changing outweighs the result that we're fearing if we make the change. That the possibility of the reward is significantly more likely than the failure. I highly recommend Mel Robbins' book called The Let Them Theory. She has a few sections devoted to adult friendships and relationships that are amazing. And right now, I just noticed this morning, Hay House at hayhouse.com for Black Friday, they actually have her book at, I think it's like $15. So if you want to check that out, I'm not related to Hay House at all, financial or anything. I noticed that this morning, so I thought I would mention that while I'm recording. It may not be on sale by the time you listen to this, but you might check it out. I highly recommend her book. Because she brings clarity to our desire to motivate others to become who we want them to be, which doesn't work because, as we just realized, humans don't change until they're ready and want to, and we can't do much to change someone's mind to become who we want them to be. We tend to push them away or create great resistance with our pushing and pulling. But we can influence others. How? Our inner child likes fun and easy now, not judgment and hard things with a future reward. So it's drawn towards pleasure and runs away from anything that feels like pain. So then we have to see how we can make it feel good for someone to be with us. And how do we make it feel good, Brother Zen? Well, we can realize that we all decide for ourselves, and we can let go of the responsibility of deciding for others. Basically, we stop pushing and pulling to start. That's going to make it feel good, at least not feel so bad. We can face the underlying fears of, what if they don't decide to do what we feel they should do? Usually, that's going to be related somehow to defining our worth by their actions or non-actions, their words or their silence. That is our own trigger, and that is our responsibility and no one else's. In Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory, she shares, acceptance of another person as they are is the foundation of a healthy, loving relationship. When someone feels that you accept them as they are, they feel safe with you. The opposite happens when you pressure, change, criticize, push, or expect someone to behave differently than they are. This pressure puts you and your loved one in a battle for control, whether or not you realize it. She says, remember how Dr. K's research about how the brain is wired to move toward pleasure and away from pain. Feeling your pressure is painful, which is why they're moving away from you, which only makes you push harder, and that makes them resist more. I like this. She says, "This will be a never-ending standoff between the two of you, but you have the power to end it." It is quite an amazing book. I'm almost finished reading it, and I can't recommend it enough. But she does go on to talk about living as the person you are and expressing the things you want to see from others by doing it yourself consistently for 6 months. What? I know. That can seem like a long time. But as we do the things that we are wanting to receive from others without expectation, just living the life that we are wanting to experience, then eventually they will either see it and start doing that for themselves and towards you, or they won't. And then at the 6 month period, you will then be in a place of making a decision. Is the behavior a deal breaker? Then it's going to be time to end it. If it isn't a deal breaker, then we stop complaining about what they are not doing or doing wrong, and we can start focusing on what they are doing well. We focus on kindness and love and not on passive aggressive behavior or talking about them to others behind their back. I'm just blown away by this book. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're wanting to know more about relationships, adult relationships, and romantic relationships. We'll dive into more of this in the next episode, but I highly recommend reading or listening to her book for more deeper aha insights regarding finding love in your life and making the friendships and relationships that we have with others an easier path, instead of repeating the same cycle of pushing and pulling and ending up in a battle. All right, I'm going to leave it here for now. Keep a lookout on Facebook and Instagram for reminders throughout the week to help us refocus on this moment where an easier path exists. Links to all my social media are in the description box of this video, along with my email. And I'd love to hear what challenges or tools to overcome your challenges that you have or are experiencing on your human adventure. You can comment on this video or send me an email if you prefer it not to be public. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time, remember, the human path can feel crazy and hazy, shaky and bakey, but you are loved eternally and unconditionally by the mother and father of all things, our creator. And of course, I love you too. So enjoy the adventure, my Zen friend. I'll see you soon.